So I'm a developer. I want to know if I can, provide you with a good answer. How do I prompt you to give me enough information to tell if I can or not?
Yeah, and if I find what I think the resolution is, can I do it for you? Being really upfront about whether or not I am the one to do it for you. Sometimes it's not even people's projects. So I'm going to skip here. This is my template suggestion. This is what I give to my clients. When I say this is what I want there to be a title or a subject line. I want there to be a detailed description. I always want them to tell me how it's supposed to work, the desired outcome, and I really need steps to reproduce and visualize. These other two pieces, I make them optional. I think people usually will tell me about the priority if it's really important, and otherwise not so important. And I leave this other piece here, additional useful information. And I think only the first four are required, and I think it's important to include all of those first four, even if it seems absolutely obvious. My website is down. Well, what's the desired outcome? I want my website up, right? But sometimes it's really important to understand what people mean by down. Sometimes they just mean it's too slow. So we want to make sure that we're really understanding the desired outcome that people want. The other reason that I keep a lot of information, in my personal preference, is to have information in the additional useful information area that is not directly related to those top four pieces. Because as a developer myself, I find it really distracting to have people's ideas thrown out there. Oh, it was all working fine until the intern was hired, which might seem really, could be a useful piece of information, but isn't really one of those first four pieces, right? So I'm going to break these down just a little bit more because this is where a lot of these are drawn from the pet peeves of my coworkers and other developers in the Valley. What makes a good subject line, right? So one of the first things somebody said is every report needs to have a verb. If it doesn't have a verb in it, well, I'm sorry, it's not a good report, right? It needs to have a verb in that first subject line. What needs to happen or what is happening that shouldn't be happening. That title needs to be brief, needs to be as specific as possible. Those two things are really in tension, but the idea is really just to provide the facts, as succinctly as possible in that subject line. Reporting a single issue. This is not a place to put everything that happens on a particular web page or in a particular part of a project. And my personal favorite is avoiding exclamation points and emoticons in your titles and subjects. Yes, your website's down, it's really issue. And this is really important also because most people, right, they bring it into their ticketing system, they have to be able to find it in the future, and they also have to be able to find, they need to be able to pick your issue out of a lot of different things. So if it's not very clear, or if it's not very specific, it's going to really get lost in a bunch of other things. So here is my examples. This is an actual example that a friend of mine can. I also want to tell you folks that I am not dumping on people. These are all things that I have actually reported myself. I am not dumping on my clients to say I have actually submitted feedback form, right? I have done that because it seems like when we're all working on a project together, it should be obvious what's wrong with that feedback form. But needs improvement, right? So there's a better version, right? We've got a better version. The feedback form is sending too much email. We've got another better version. The contact form on the website is sending too much to my whole company every time someone submits the form. And then better still, the feedback form sends email to the all staff list when it's submitted. So I was originally envisioning this as this sort of grammar exercise, right? You get the rules and you can figure out what happened, right? So the better still includes a verb, right? First one, no verb, has an exclamation point. And the other thing that's really important about the one that I like the best is that it also reports a single issue. We are not telling people about the broken logo. We are not telling people about the fact that when I actually navigate to that page, it doesn't work on their platform. We're just really being focused on the title and being as brief as possible, focusing on the facts. So, detailed description. Sorry, this is kind of big and clunky just because it has examples. But again, be brief and specific at the same time. Stay laser focused on a single issue. Reference specific language that is actually on the page. Copy and paste. I really have done it myself that said, I'm getting file not found on this page. That's not very useful when I could cut and paste. I'm getting Miley Cyrus /PNG is not found. Then I have an example to look for. The other things I'm thinking about are including annotated screenshots. When I say annotated, I'm thinking of putting an actual box around the part that isn't working on a visual thing. And I have had great success with performance issues and complex UX interactions that aren't working the way they're supposed to with screen capture. People actually submitting very short videos of explanation. Context, the number one issue I had from almost everybody, there's no URL here, or there's no name of a button, right? There's nothing that actually tells me what problem you had, where the problem actually happened. Yes, we're working together. Yes, I know where the about page is, but if it takes me 5 more minutes to go find that URL, it's a pain. If it's right here, it's right here. Platforms, the application including the version, and of course, we couldn't do this presentation without seeing, is it plugged in? So I want to back up and just say, did I miss anything in the title? Any of these things, anything else in the title we didn't get to? Pretty clear. Yay. Okay, so this is where the meat is for most of the developers I spoke with. They're seeing that not having enough information is the primary thing, making me dig for stuff that shouldn't happen. My personal pet peeve, which is sort of embedded in here, is when people use the own language that they talk about their websites in or their application in their own language, and they don't give me something that's actually on the page. So for example, the call to action on the donate page isn't working. There's nothing on their page that says call to action, and they don't actually have a menu item or anything on the page that says donate, right? It says give to whatever. So I can guess what that means, but unless they actually tell me what that means, it's going to take us a lot longer to get to resolution. So here's what I've come up with for my needs improvement and my better stills. It's brief but specific. I don't know, do you guys want to take a crack at this and see? You know, there's clearly a pretty big difference between them, I think. But this is just a detailed description of what I need to accomplish. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, it's got a URL, only deals with one issue. It's brief and specific at the same time, and it provides corroborating information as a forwarded email. What's your desired outcome? Brief, non-ambiguous language to describe a successful outcome. Specific examples. A really specific example. Go through something so I can tell when I fixed it. I really want an example I can work through. And my personal tenant, tell me what you want me to do. Tell me what you want, not what you want me to do, not what to do. So again, we're brief and giving a very, very specific example of what you want to happen. I want to come to this page. I want to select this item. I want to be able to select the button, come to this other page, fill out this form. It pops up a smiley face and I go home. I would like these to be visible. I would like this to work on my iPad. I would like this screen to work on my iPad. Has anyone here had an experience where you've had somebody say, the desired outcome I want is that this is an example that happened to me this week. I want my monthly calendar to render an 8-point font. You want your calendar to be an 8-point font. you hear that and you say, gosh, that seems like a really odd request, right? Well, that's what they told me to do. They told me to render their monthly calendar in their 8-point font. What it turned out was there was a bug in their responsive display so that they had to scroll their monthly calendar on their iPad. They actually didn't want it in 8-point font. They actually wanted to be able to see the whole calendar without scrolling. So telling the goal of what you want and don't tell me what to do, tell me what you want to happen. It's really important, because if we delivered your calendar in 8-point font, it's not going to look terrific everywhere else. Maybe your iPad would lay out properly. So here's my example. So I want the form to stop saying, add the CAPTCHA. Right? This is going to cut down on spam. I looked it up on the internet, and it says, if I want to cut down on spam, I'm going to add CAPTCHA. Well, really, we want to say that we want, every time this is submitted, we want this form to only go to the current moderators on the site, which is this list of 4 people. Right? There's 4 people who get that. Anything else I missed with a successful outcome? Describing what I want to happen?
The only thing I've kind of run into, my company, we do software that's sort of iterative, that's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of the times when we're researching bug reports or anything like that, one of the questions we ask is, has this ever worked?
Yeah.
Has it before?
Yeah.
Not just what was your desired outcome, but have you ever achieved that previously? So less important
That's a great
for new
idea.
features, but for fixing existing stuff,
Yeah.
it's now since broken, can be a helpful piece of information.
That's a great idea. Has it ever worked before? It's great.
Are you putting these in a standard format? Like, does it matter how you organize the report in terms of like what's happening first and then what's not happening, or
So for me, I like to have the problem, like the issue you're experiencing, and then how it differs from the ideal, and then the steps I take to get there, and then anything else you want to tell me about. That's what I prefer. Is there anybody else who develops that, likes a different way?
Yeah, I guess for me, the main thing is just wanting to have it be consistent so that I know what I'm looking at. Like, that when an issue is reported, that it's always sort of, the same way. Like the first thing I'm reading is always going to be one thing. And I don't know if there is like a best way to do it. Part of the problem, I guess, is it sometimes depends on the issue, like how much you want to focus on what's currently happening, because sometimes you have to explain a lot about what's currently happening in order to get to the point where you can say, like, this, it's at this point here where it should be doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't make any sense to start by saying this is what I wanted to do, because there's no context of where the problem started.
Mm-hmm. One thing I found is that so many, depending on what tool you use, it might have an enforced form. First you enter A, then you enter B. I find sometimes that that discourages people from actually reporting issues, right? Because if the form gets really clunky, and we have sort of a project management portal and we have a bug tracking system, but we don't have a form that things go in. So we just try to suggest an order, but we don't enforce it. Other people in the open source community has very specific ways, depending on the project, that they want you to order things, or that the way you put it in. But I think whatever makes things easiest to describe what you need, as long as we understand what section we're looking at. This is my problem. Here's an explanation of my problem. As long as those pieces of information are there and it's clear what they are, I don't have a preference of the order, but that's me particularly.
What tool do you use? Or do you have a preference for bug tracking tool?
So for when I'm working within user acceptance testing, we're often just still in the project management portal. It hasn't gone live, so we use Teamwork where I work to capture those things, which is why there are no rules, and that's why it's really important for me to give my the people I work with a template to do that. Once things go live, we use, why am I drawing a blank at the moment? I spent so much time there. Dun for a ticketing system, and also something that integrates. We just started also trying to use something that integrates with teamwork. I think it's called Team Desk or Help Desk, Team Help Desk. Do you use something? What's your tool of
We
choice?
use, so we kind of have two separate audiences. We have our internal testers, and they all use TFS, Team Foundation Server, for sort of bug tracking, ticketing, stuff like that. And that has we have very specific requirements for internal testers that they have, to fill out certain pieces of information. That being said, again, you want to encourage as much participation as possible. We've also tried to provide like tools to make that a lot easier. So like filling out the stuff is quicker. So, there's some things that, we've done where it's like, okay, you can capture the version information a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's great.
We've really tried to speed that up. But we also have our end customers, and they come from all sorts of backgrounds. And for them, we usually will set up a SharePoint list, which is how we interact with them. And that is a lot more freeform. We try to keep it as limited as possible. We do have the advantage that we can call them up. Usually, it's like, okay, report the issue, here's some guidelines sort of similar to what you were doing. And then, since it registers who logged it, we, have like one of our business analysts, the project manager, or sometimes even the developer will just kind of pick up the phone and go, what? What's going on?
Are there does anybody else have a favorite tool that they use, that they provide? Nobody's got favorites.
Yeah, we use GitHub internally, and sometimes client facing as well, depending on the client. But it's pretty simple, just a title field and a description field. But one thing that I wish it did, I've seen some systems that will give you like a default sort of framework within that description field, or to sort of remind you of the different things to write and the order. But it's just text, so you can just delete it and do whatever you want. I forget what system it was that I was using that. But
I played around a bit with like Bugzilla, and then I also used, I worked at Microsoft briefly, and they had their internal system, but it was similar. So
we're all looking for the best thing, I guess. So how do we reproduce the issue? Again, this is one of those ones everybody needs to know, and it really needs to happen. The simplest steps, and again, my own personal thing that has bit me, is avoid descriptive language that doesn't appear in your application or on your page. Just because you call it, our landing page, doesn't mean that everyone knows what your landing page is, especially me, who only visits your site once in a while and thinks of that as your homepage or your whatever. We want to use something that says the name of my company. So these are just my own little fake things, because I was trying to think of an issue that I could carry through all the steps. This is so simple, it doesn't really make sense to have it. But one thing I realized is, I need cooperation here, right? I don't have something that I can just see, make it happen, test repeatedly, because I'm gonna alienate a whole lot of people, right? If I'm submitting a lot of bugs and it's biffing everybody. It's a simplistic example, but it's important to just make sure that we're not just saying, go and fill out the contact form. All of us will know when you're getting the mail. It's sort of like really trying to say, here's what I'll do for you. I'm going to forward the email to you. So really step by step, if you get a chance, try them out. You don't want to spend your whole life filing bug reports, right? We want this to be really fast for you, but we also want to make sure we have all the steps to reproduce. This is the hardest thing to me. Here's my priority. I don't know, it's mostly website. I sort of look at it this way, but I also think it's an optional exercise for me. I think priority is in the eye of the beholder, right? What your priority isn't necessarily my priority, but I want to try to be empathetic. I want to try to put myself in your shoes and understand that it's really bad if your boss is irate because they're getting spammed every time somebody fills out this form, but it's also not the highest priority when it comes, it's really annoying, but no small animals are being harmed, right, at this moment, which is great. So the other thing is not to cry wolf. You've probably all done that. Just because it's really important to me and it's the highest priority thing in my life today. There are other times tomorrow or the next day when, yeah, it's not going to work on your phone, maybe the way you expected, but still we're going to get there. So it's a very high priority. My boss is furious. It's really high priority. It's affecting our priority. They're really similar to me, but it's also, they understand. Is there a workaround I can offer them at this point to say, maybe if we just put these filters in place, we can get things done? To me, that's a priority. Eye of the beholder, and pretty interesting. So this is my favorite thing that I decided that I would put in, and this is my favorite is additional information. So this is stuff that I think is not directly related to the facts, but is interesting information for you. So things you might have found on Google related to your issue, things you tried to do on your own. Related issues, this is the place I would say, has this ever worked? I've never tried this before, right? Or I have tried it before, and the last time I remember it working was last week. General weirdness, in case it's ever useful. And I always have this inkling like, oh, this could be really great information. They might need to know the fact that there was a full moon last Wednesday. Often they don't, right? I think of this place as, I have some clients who really and truly notice all these details and feel like it's really important to convey them, but I also feel like it's really distracting if it's part of that, what I want to have in at the beginning, or it might take me down a road that I don't plan to go down. I want to know about it, but I want to know about it in this separate section that's not part of the facts of the issue. So here's the place for the conspiracy theories, the red herrings, the advice from your brother-in-law, your hunches, intuitions, and gut feelings, only when the moon is full, first night of the month, only at midnight, when the logs, I'm sure it's related to log rolling, experiences that you want to share. So I just give people a place to put anything they want. It helps me because it gives them a spot where they can put all that information that really is sometimes very important. And sometimes it really makes no sense. And I don't want somebody saying, the client said it was related to DNS. So I spent 45 minutes looking at DNS. No, the client said their website was down. The client said email is going out. The client didn't. The client thinks it could be related to this, but we don't know for sure. So here's my sample. Our new intern started yesterday, just around the same time this started happening. I don't know. Is it related? Could be. Could be the interns going and doing all kinds of stuff. So that's sort of like all the steps that I think are important in that template that I like to give people. Here's the steps. Here's the other places that I want to say. Do I have, this is the one you were asking about, do I have the information I need to address the issue? So do I understand the desired outcome? Can I reproduce it? Do I have the access I need? I don't know. If I have the access I need, do I have credentials? In this case, do I have an email where I can see what's going on? Do I have a way to test this without spamming the whole company each and every time I do it? Has this ever happened before? Or has it ever worked before? If so, how often and how long ago? And is it really an issue with the product that I'm providing? Or is it something that is completely unrelated? It's been a long time now, but on IE, I can remember some websites. I had a website that broke only for 3 customers in a building. And it turned out it was only for people that had the Google search bar enabled for IE. And you're saying, well, I can't recreate it. What's going on? Well, it turns out randomly that the issue, it's not necessarily with my product. The issue is pretty widespread with anybody that's installed this third-party toolbar, right? Hard to debug, really hard, really important to have specific issues. Is this an issue with my product? Meaning, is it anything that I could do? Is it anything I could fix if it was in my power? Does anybody have other important questions that they would ask, or questions that they would consider asking themselves to solicit information around these tools? I wish I had better jokes, you guys. I really do. Sorry. I didn't say up when I was in this room yesterday too, I saw 2 back-to-back presentations in this room, and both of the people had been either hospitalized or had an injury within 4 days. So I was just knocking wood that I showed up on time. And one of the gentlemen said, yeah, I stayed up all night looking up bad jokes on the internet. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna so not have bad jokes for tomorrow. So, can I provide an adequate solution? So this is another question that I ask myself. Do I have the needed skill set? Will correcting this issue cause new and more significant issues to pop up, like the Google toolbar, removing that? What's going on with that? Is this a temporary issue, or maybe it's already fixed? You know, if they just accept the new release, will this fix the problem? And then when I think about it, should I provide a solution to the issue, or do I need to go back and say, this is a business rule? This is something that I can't fix for you, but you need to talk to your boss about, or you need to talk, it's an issue with your workflow. It's not an issue that I can fix for you. Even though you're reporting it and it is really important, doesn't mean I can fix it for you. And I think the developers of my acquaintance, they really want to please people. They want to fix the problem. Too often, I come from a Drupal shop, too often I've seen people actually say, okay, I'll give you admin permission. That will solve the problem. You won't get that bug anymore. And my heart drops. We can't do that. You can't fix it like that for them. You absolutely can't fix it like that for them. We need to find a different way. We need to understand why they're asking to fix that problem. All right, and finally, I have tips and precautions for filing bug reports. Did you do your homework? I don't know about you guys, but the first thing that happens whenever I call up for a tool like a hosting company and I'm asking for support, first thing they're doing is looking up in their knowledge base that's already open to me. They're looking up my problem. I get impatient because I say, I looked that up. If I had the answer, I would already know the answer if I had to look it up like that. But then I realized that not everybody does look it up, first of all, and not everybody understands what they're reading. So try to do your homework so that you won't be frustrated and say yes, and yes, go through the checklist. You'll see that I've done everything that needs to happen. On an open source project, checking the list of known issues to see if somebody's already reported the issue. To me, that's just polite. So we try to do that, but I think sometimes you need to have a specialized language to be able to even look it up properly. So definitely file the report if it's a choice. Using the proper channels for a bug report. So I maintain my church's website. I can't tell you how many times I've been at social hour, shilling for crop walk, having fun with my friends, and somebody comes up, I tried to post pictures of that youth group event yesterday. Won't let me upload any more pictures. In their mind, they have just filed a bug report. My mind is like, oh, I have not captured that in any way. I know that they're going to go home thinking that they're all set, and I'm going to go home. I might run into one of my clients here at this event, and they'd say, this is really important. Don't forget, I told you that on the phone, that this was really important. So part of my job as a project manager is capture those things when I'm actually at work. But clients also need to make sure, you also need to make sure that you're using the recommended channel. If it's email, if it's a particular bug reporting system, making sure it gets into the process will help you get it fixed in the right way. Beware of inadvertent disclosure of confidential information. So I was working for a lot of different people last year. They were all using different time tracking methods, right? One of them was using Harvest, somebody used Teamwork natively, somebody else was using a really complex tool. I don't even remember, I blocked it out because it was so horrible. But everyone had their own way. But for me, as a contractor working on all these different projects, I needed to be able to time to one project and then really switch as soon as the phone rang, so I'm not charging the wrong client for my time, to another project. And I found this tool. I was so excited. I found this tool that would keep time across like zillions of these different timekeeping systems. And it would switch when I was switching. And all I had to do was have one interface to keep my time across all these different projects for these 3 different companies. And I had a problem with it. It wasn't working for at least one of the integrations intermittently. So he says, okay, here, turn on the logging. Turn on the logging. He said to him, all of a sudden, he's like, okay, now send me the log. I need to figure out what's happening. And I realized that embedded in that log is how much I make, what all my clients are, how much time I spent, confidential email like addresses for my clients, right? That's all configured as part of the setup, right? And I start to look at the log and I'm realizing I'm sending all this confidential information to this person because I want my timer to work. That's really not appropriate. And I luckily realized it before I sent it off in the mail, but I had to sanitize that. I had to strip out all the personalized stuff. Same with emails. If you're forwarding somebody something with full headers, please take out the actual communication, right? They don't really care if you're sending a love note to your husband or you're, sending a recipe to your mother or you're talking about a really highly confidential thing to your mom. What they're really caring about is debugging your email issue. So pay attention. Just because somebody asks, you don't have to give it to them. And that for me is a really important thought process. I've also had people say, well, I need access to your logs. Well, you might, but maybe you don't. Maybe the right thing to do is for me to get you the information you need from the logs. Can I ask somebody who has the authority to look at that server log and give you what you need to get the information you need? Because, we can't just be handing somebody our web logs, for example. Are there other areas that you can think of where you get bit by disclosing confidential information, these bug reports? For me, I see it I'm scared. People are sending username and passwords. Never do that. I know they talked about that a little bit, but just because somebody wants it, we got to find a different way. We can't send them username and password through the email to solve your problem. So inadvertent disclosure happens all the time, sometimes because we're so stressed because we're having this big issue that we really want to fix it right away. Doesn't mean we should be giving away stuff we shouldn't be giving away. And then the other one that I really struggle with is somebody asks me a question, they're soliciting more information from me. I'm responding, but in the course of that conversation, gosh, 3 other things have come up and, here they are, they're already in that code. I know that they're already working in that code right there. I'm just going to add it right here. Just, single thing, laser focus. We need to know when this is done. If I keep responding saying, oh, and just one more thing on this page, did you happen to notice the font over there is not right? Did you happen to notice on the iPad this doesn't work? That's just because you're asking, I'm asking you, I'm asking the person who's reporting the bug, I'm going back and saying, I need more information about this. You know what? Don't respond. The kind of information I'm looking for is the information I'm asking for. You can ask, you can give me lots of additional information, being clear it's additional information, but don't focus on a different problem. Don't tell me, yeah, that's good, but now this is happening. We need to open a different report. It's kind of not very nice.
Would you just do that for people? I find that oftentimes I have issues where, we fix the issue and the response is, this seems to be working, but this other thing over here isn't working now. Or, something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll just copy and paste that into another issue for them. Other times I'll try and teach them that needs to go in another issue.
Yeah, and I'm trying to teach that should go in another issue, but I also, to the tools you use, the tools I use, some clients actually log in and they're able to use the interface and do things, or they generate emails and people are just responding to email. And I find the hardest thing is that once things are going back and forth in an email, even if I start a new response, a new issue ticket, people are still replying to that old email. So all that context is still going to the wrong project. So until I can, or to the wrong task. And so I try to educate, and I think it's a great idea. Do you have tips that work for you? For actually?
It seems to be sort of hit or miss sometimes. I think it just depends on the person and also their context, how, sometimes if they are overworked and, then they're more likely to just be throwing problems at you any way they can possibly imagine. But yeah, it's sort of I think, so one of the things that I was thinking was if you have a document like this, which we don't, and I guess that's one of the things I'm thinking about is just sort of kindly, referencing it and saying, this is the process that, if you can follow this process, it really helps
That's
us
right,
to
yeah.
be more efficient
That's
or
right.
something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think just having these, things documented at this level is a good start.
One of the things I've done personally in kind of determining, okay, do I just file a separate issue myself or do I kind of prompt them to do it, is whether or not it's something that they're gonna be doing on a regular basis.
Mm.
So if it's, our equivalent of user acceptance testing that happens to be a project team member who we're probably never gonna work with again, then I'll usually just file the issue separately, let them know that I've done that and continue on. But if it's someone like we're kind of owned by our customers, so we work with a lot of them repeatedly. We have steering committees that they have.
Yeah,
So if it's one of those folks, it's like, yeah, you want to go here and log in,
Yeah.
so I'll push back. Or if it's any of our internal testers, it's, I'll start looking at it. But, if I don't see a ticket by the end of the day,
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna stop.
Right, absolutely. And I don't know about other folks, the way other shops do it, but we actually, we charge our clients based on, we do timekeeping associated with these bugs and we have to charge people. So it gets really confusing. Like how come you spend 6 hours on this? It doesn't seem like a 6-hour problem. It's like, oh, she kept asking for responding to all these other things and being really clear when it's time to open a new ticket. And I think for us, the issue is that we're using, people are mostly interacting with the tool by email, and I don't have a good way to redirect them into the new email other than saying, at some point, we just can't, we can't answer. We won't answer.
Are you charging per issue? So like opening up a new issue costing them more money?
No, well, it depends, but basically it depends on the kind of agreement we have with people. It's all different all over the board. But for an issue that somebody's reporting that's just comes out of sort of hours that they've prepaid, right, a retainer, it's eating their retainer hours for us to fix that. And so it's not issue by issue, not at all.
Yeah, there are some places that do charge issue by issue,
No,
and in that case, I can understand why people would keep asking you to do more within the same issue.
I think for at least for some of the folks that have trouble, it's because one thing flows to the next, and they really just see them as very related issues, and they don't understand, at least my personal need for closure, to be able to close a ticket and feel successful and say, we fixed your problem, we've identified this, and it's really great.
I would visualize it like I see my car, it's this black box that I put my key in and I turn it, and if it doesn't work, the car is broken.
Yep.
Whereas the mechanic's like, yeah, your fuel filter sucks. You need a new axle, or I don't know anything about cars, but
That's right.
It's hard to educate folks sometimes.
We do. So I just want to say the last thing is when the issue is resolved, a lot of these tracking systems, they send automated emails. Try from a developer's perspective to go easy on those satisfaction surveys. It's a difficult time when you're experiencing a problem, but sometimes it really hurts when you get those things back and it's like, oh man, I really did try. It was not satisfied. It took 3 hours. It was a hard problem. And I think both developers and people, whether they're developers or just people using the products who take the time to submit a bug report, both people need to take the time to say thank you. It's a cooperative and collaborative process, fixing issues that come up. And the more we have a chance to say thank you, I think the better the relationship will be and the more we'll all feel that we've accomplished something. So take the time to say thanks. Thank you. Any other questions, points, anything we should talk about? All right, thank you all for being here. And I'm really apologetic that I don't have more jokes. I don't have good jokes. Uh-oh. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for being here. All right, that's that. Oops. Uh-oh, I think.